Okay people, welcome back, or if it's your first time here, welcome. It's going to be the third installment to Operation Antiquity. We left off the last video with Project Blue Book. That was from 47 to 69. So for this video, we're going to try to stay within a decade range of that, probably from 1946 up to 56-ish, somewhere in there. I did say in my last video that the cover-up for Roswell didn't really take effect until Stanton Friedman's interview with Jesse Marcel in 1978, and that's the truth. However, Roswell wasn't the first cover-up. Yeah, they covered it up in 47, didn't rediscover that until 78, but it's not the first cover-up. We're going to go through a case today. It still pisses me off to this day, and that's going to be the Thomas Mantell incident. And the government said that Thomas Mantell climbed too high, ran out of oxygen because he was chasing the planet Venus. His plane spiraled out of control, crashed in Kentucky. That is the official story. There's a lot of problems with that story. Let's just say, even if Thomas Mantell was not a World War II veteran from D-Day, and he'd not been in the air as much as he had, given all that, let's say all that took place, and we believe the bullshit that was spewed about him chasing planet Venus. Even if that was the case, this is 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon, 1:30 in the afternoon, broad daylight. How many pilots do you know could even find the planet Venus 1:30 in the afternoon in the daylight? Make it make sense. I'm looking forward to get into this because now we're starting to get into the cases, some of which were Blue Book, some will not be Blue Book. Without me holding you back anymore, let's jump into that.
The Pentagon, Washington, D.C. And this man is Colonel Bill Coleman. He was Chief of Public Information for the United States Air Force from 1969 to 1974.
It was here at the Pentagon that the Defense Department first became interested in the UFO phenomenon. This occurred in the late 1940s, with reports about objects and lights seen in the sky by military personnel and others. The Air Force decided to investigate the matter anyway. There was that one possibility that these flying objects could well be foreign weapons used for test purposes and might affect our national security. The investigative branch was called Project Sign. The project had only been underway for about 2 weeks when the Mantell crash had made headlines across the nation. The staff's investigation was far from complete, but public pressure was enormous, and they were forced to come up with an answer to really quiet growing speculation that Mantell had been killed by hostile aliens in some flying saucer. That's when we decided that Mantell had chased the planet Venus.
How did he describe the object?
He said it was about 200 feet across, probably 70, 75 feet thick. It has observation windows from the top section around. He moved around it again, and he said it's metallic, dull aluminum color. And he said, well, now it's trying to move away. I'm going to close in for a better look. And that's the last thing he ever said.
The Air Force speculated that Mantell was suffering hallucinations caused by anoxia, the medical term for lack of oxygen. Was Captain Mantell coherent when he was talking to you?
In my opinion, he had control right on through. I have worked people with anoxia, and in my opinion, he wasn't suffering. He was in full command of his facility.
To most, Franklin, Kentucky appears to be a typical southern town. But beneath this facade lies a dark mystery. 1948, it was here that 25-year-old fighter pilot Captain Thomas Mantell made headlines around the world after he died chasing a UFO in the skies above Franklin, Kentucky. For over 70 years, his tragic plane crash has left the community clamoring for answers. On January 7th, 1948, control tower operators at Godman Army Airfield in Fort Knox, Kentucky, receive a report of an unidentified flying object hovering over the base. Controllers immediately radio the Kentucky Air National Guard. Captain Thomas Mantell, who is leading a flight of 4 P-51 aircraft, is sent to investigate. Within minutes, Mantell and his wingmen close in on the mysterious object. But then, Mantell gives an astonishing order to one of the pilots in his formation. Return to base and arm your plane with hot guns. The military term which means prepare to fire. While the other plane prepares for intergalactic battle, Mantell climbs higher and higher in pursuit of the UFO. Captain Mantell's plane is last seen as it hurtles to the ground, crash landing in a field in Franklin, Kentucky. The same town where, ironically, he was born just 25 years earlier.
Here's someone, Thomas Mantell, served at D-Day, lives through that, and then dies years later in peacetime over the continental United States, chasing a UFO in a situation where the government says there's no such thing. And yet you've got to live with this. You've got to deal with the fact that this happened in your family, your grandfather. I don't know how people deal with that. I don't know how they get their closure, but I hope they do.
It takes place July 24th, 1948, during a red-eye flight, actually, from Houston to Atlanta on a DC-3 passenger plane. The pilots of this aircraft were Clarence Childs and Charles Whitted. These are both experienced pilots.
And what they saw was a very rapid flight of an object that flew apparently close to the airliner.
I mean, you're talking maybe 100 feet, maybe 200 feet away. In the air at that altitude, that's really close and enough to frighten any sane, rational pilot as to wondering what this thing was.
It happened very quickly. One of the pilots thought he saw illuminated windows across the object.
It's interesting that both of these pilots drew what they saw. And what you find is they are remarkably similar. They both show this elongated object, like a rocket or like a missile, except it's got a little kind of a tail thing that they depict and those layers of windows, which are very, very distinctive.
And was followed by a trail which led to the official explanation that this might be a meteor. The problem with the explanation is that they described the object as turning up and flying up into the clouds and up into the sky. Meteors don't do that, and balloons don't do that either. So we can now go back and say the Air Force explanation for that particular case in 1948 is a wrong one.
Flying Officer Johnson and Flying Officer Smythe. And Flying Officer Johnson first, tell us exactly what had happened.
Well, the whole story began last Tuesday when we were flying in a Vampire night fighter over Kent and at 20,000 feet, and I first sighted this object. The first sighting was of a tiny pinpoint of bright light. My first impression was that it was a star shining through the overcast, and I looked around to see if there were any more stars, but obviously there weren't. And I continued watching this thing, and for about 15 to 20 seconds it remained stationary, neither moving left or right. After this time, the thing obviously was moving towards us, and before it reached the overhead position, I nudged my navigator, Flying Officer Smythe, to have a look up. By the time it got to the overhead position, it appeared to be moving at quite a fast, fantastic speed, and my impression of it, more or less a photographic impression, was of a round object, quite distinct outline, still with the same intense light, with the maximum light around or towards the periphery of the circle, not quite so intense in the center. The size, the only thing I can compare it with is the sun or the moon, and I had said that the size was approximately half to three-quarters of the size of the moon. Its height, well, there again, I haven't anything to compare it with.
There's no cloud on that day?
No, there's no cloud at all. The visibility was about 100 miles. From where we were, we could actually see the other side of the Isle of Wight.
And what about its speed?
Well, I can't give any indication of speed, as I can't give a true idea of the height. The only thing is I can say that the impression was of an object very much higher above us, and therefore
Depending on height would depend on speed, but truly has a very fantastic speed in roughly the opposite direction.
Thank you very much. Well, flying off the Smythe, can we have your side of the story?
Well, I was rather busy at the time, and I didn't see anything until the pilot told me to look up. And when I looked up, I saw this bright object almost immediately overhead, going in the opposite direction at quite fantastic speed.
And could it have been any sort of meteorological instrument or balloon, in your opinion?
Well, I don't think so. We've gone into this business, we've argued it out amongst ourselves, and we haven't yet arrived at anything conclusive. We don't think it was a met balloon, we don't think it was another aircraft.
You're pretty used to seeing those.
There's been quite a few.
Quite a few. Yeah. So what about your conclusions? You say you've drawn none. What did you think about this whole flying saucer story before you came across this one, or this event?
Well, up to this time, I was a confirmed skeptic, but now I think I have an open mind.
You're still open mind?
Just an open mind.
Right, well, thank you very much indeed.
RAF intelligence officers are now investigating every report of so-called flying saucers over Britain.
We're going to cut the video there today. Thank you for coming and hanging out. I know you can be other places, watching other people do other things, but you're here checking this out, so I thank you very much. And I will see you guys next time.
Mr. Cartman, do you know a boy by the name of Token?
Yes.
Who is Token?
He's a black kid that goes to my school.
Black? Did you say black? You called him black?
He is black.
Oh, he said it again!
Oh. Dumbass! Dumbasses! Dumbass! Dumbass!
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.